For several weeks, Karen Lindgren looked like the smartest person in Cedar Ridge Estates. Then the wildfire alarms started. The fire trucks arrived at the one road that was supposed to be our backup escape route, only to find tents, tables, and market stands blocking their way. That was the moment everything Karen had built began falling apart. But before you understand how a simple community project turned into a disaster, you need to know who Karen was. My name is Walt. I'm 68 years old, and after 31 years working for the county, I thought I had seen just about every kind of neighborhood dispute. My wife Donna and I moved to Cedar Ridge Estates because of the peace, the mountain views, the quiet streets, and the neighbors who actually looked out for each other. Behind our homes was a gravel road called Ridgeline Access. Most people barely noticed it. The weeds had grown through the cracks, the gravel was uneven, and years had passed since anyone used it regularly. To most residents, it looked abandoned. But it wasn't. That road had one important purpose. It was our emergency exit route. If a wildfire ever came through the canyon, emergency crews could use Ridgeline Access to reach us quickly, and residents could escape another way if the main road became dangerous. Everyone who had lived there long enough knew that. Especially Stan Puit. Stan lived 2 houses away from me. He was a retired fire captain who had spent decades responding to disasters. He understood what that road meant. Then, during our spring HOA meeting, Karen stood up. She held the microphone confidently, smiled at everyone, and introduced her idea. "I'd like to propose turning Ridgeline Access into a weekly farmers market," she announced. A few people immediately liked the idea. Karen pointed out that the road was sitting unused most of the time. She called it wasted space. But Stan didn't hesitate. "Karen, that's our only secondary emergency route," he said. "You can't just turn it into a market because it looks empty." Karen smiled. Not an angry smile. A polite one. The kind that made you feel like she had already decided she was right. "Stan, I'm not asking you to manage HOA property," she replied. "I'm bringing a proposal to the board." The room became quiet. Stan leaned forward. "This isn't just property, it's a lifeline." Karen ignored the comment and moved on to the next agenda item. A week later, a letter arrived from the county fire marshal's office. It reminded the HOA that Ridgeline Access was officially classified as emergency egress. Any obstruction would require proper review and approval. At the next meeting, Karen dismissed the warning. She called it a simple formality. She kept moving forward. Soon, residents started a petition. Around 30 people signed it, mostly older neighbors who remembered exactly why that road existed. Karen accepted the petition politely. She thanked everyone for their concerns. Then she filed it away, and apparently never looked at it again. 3 weeks later, somehow the farmers market received approval. At least on paper. Nobody seemed completely sure who approved it or which documents were actually signed. Stan tried calling the county office twice. Both times he was transferred around until eventually nobody gave him a clear answer. By then, it was already happening. Vendors had been contacted. Flyers were everywhere. A grand opening was scheduled. And one Saturday morning, while drinking coffee in my kitchen, I watched the first vendor tent being placed directly across the only road that could save us. At the time, I didn't know it. But that moment would matter later. By 10 a.m., Ridgeline Access was completely transformed. The quiet gravel road was now filled with people. Families walked between tents. Neighbors bought fresh bread, vegetables, honey, and homemade goods. Everyone seemed happy. Donna came home holding a jar of honey. "Maybe Karen actually got this one right," she said. And honestly, I started thinking the same thing. For the next few weeks, the market became the biggest thing in Cedar Ridge Estates. People from nearby neighborhoods started showing up. The location was perfect. A mountain view behind the vendors, fresh air, and a small town feeling that made everyone feel connected. Karen loved every second of it. She arranged banners, She invited local reporters. She even appeared in the newspaper, standing proudly in the middle of the road. The headline read, "Community reimagines unused space." When Stan showed me the article, he just shook his head. "Unused," he said quietly. "That's one way to describe it." But even Stan couldn't deny the market was popular. His own wife bought strawberries there. A local beekeeper sold honey. A fisherman sold smoked trout. A teenager's lemonade stand was making more money in a weekend than many adults earned years ago. Karen walked through the market like she had created something revolutionary. She knew every vendor by name. She took pictures for the HOA newsletter. At the next meeting, people actually applauded her. Even some residents who had signed the petition were cheering. I'll admit it, my doubts started disappearing too. Maybe Stan and I had overreacted. Maybe the road really wasn't needed anymore. Maybe times had changed. Then, about a month after the market opened, something appeared on the local news. A small wildfire had started about 20 miles east of us. Nothing dramatic. No evacuation warnings. Just another summer fire report. The kind of story people hear about every year and forget. Nobody at the market seemed worried. But slowly things started changing. The mornings became hazier. The sunsets turned strange. Donna noticed her eyes burning slightly while working outside. The fire was still being monitored. Still far away, still someone else's problem. At least that's what everyone thought. I asked Karen about it at the next HOA meeting. She barely looked concerned. "Walt, that fire is 20 miles away," she said. "We get smoke from other states all the time. This isn't unusual." Stan didn't argue. He just looked exhausted. By the following weekend, the sky above the canyon had changed. The orange glow at sunset looked beautiful in photographs. But anyone who had lived around wildfires knew what it meant. Something was coming, and the market continued. Tents went up, tables filled the road. People walked around smiling. Karen talked about how successful September was going to be. I stood near the edge of Ridgeline Access that Saturday, holding a cup of coffee that had gone cold. I watched trucks unload tables onto the exact gravel road Stan had warned everyone about. That night, Donna and I closed our bedroom window for the first time all summer. We didn't know it then, but within days, everything would change. It happened on a Tuesday night. That's something I still remember. There was no dramatic warning during the day. No emergency announcement. The morning news only mentioned that the wildfire was still being monitored. Then, at around 11 p.m., every phone in Cedar Ridge Estates went off at the same time. That horrible emergency alert sound. The kind that makes your heart drop before you even read the message. Mandatory evacuation order. Leave immediately. Donna was already moving before I finished reading. Outside, sirens echoed through the neighborhood. One house after another turned on their porch lights. Dogs were barking. Neighbors stepped outside trying to understand what was happening. Then I looked toward the canyon. The same ridge that had looked beautiful and orange a few days earlier was now glowing red. And this time, there was nothing beautiful about it. It was fire. We grabbed whatever we could. Important documents, medicine, the dog, a few personal things. But mostly, we grabbed each other. Because in moments like that, you realize what actually matters. We got into the car and headed toward the main road. Then we reached Ridgeline Access. And that's when I saw the problem. 2 fire trucks were sitting there. A sheriff's vehicle was parked behind them. Their engines were running, but they weren't moving. They couldn't. The emergency road was blocked. The road Karen spent the entire summer convincing everyone was unnecessary. The same road that was supposed to give us another way out. It was now filled with market equipment. Vendor tents were still standing. Folding tables covered the gravel. A produce stand was sitting directly in the path. and a large pop-up canopy had collapsed sideways, completely blocking the road. The exact thing Stan had warned about. A firefighter jumped out of the truck. He grabbed his radio and spoke quickly. "We need this cleared immediately. This is the secondary evacuation route for 40 homes." Then Karen arrived. A few minutes later, she came walking down the street. She was wearing a robe over her pajamas. Her hair was messy. For the first time all summer, she didn't look confident. She looked confused. She looked like someone who had just discovered that her decision had consequences. She approached the officer. "There must be some misunderstanding," she said. "This is a permitted community space. I can show you the paperwork." The deputy didn't even stop. "Ma'am, please step back." Nobody wanted an explanation. Nobody wanted another meeting. Nobody wanted another debate. There was a wildfire coming. Firefighters immediately started removing everything blocking the road. Chainsaws cut through the damaged canopy. Tables were dragged away. Tents were pulled apart. Equipment that took weeks to organize disappeared in minutes. And the whole time, smoke was getting thicker. The clock was running. Then, after 11 minutes, Ridgeline access was open again. A road that Karen had spent months defending as unnecessary became the road everyone needed. By sunrise, 40 families had their escape route back. And luckily, the fire shifted direction. A change in wind helped slow it down. We were fortunate, but the fact that the road was available when we needed it wasn't luck. That happened because Stan kept warning people. Because the fire marshal sent the letter. Because residents tried to stop it before it became dangerous. The signs were there. People just chose not to listen. 2 days after the evacuation, the HOA held an emergency meeting. It was the complete opposite of the meeting where Karen received applause. Nobody was smiling. Nobody was celebrating. Nobody was talking about how beautiful the market looked. Karen stood in front of the residents and tried to explain herself. But she barely got through a few sentences before the board made their decision. The vote was taken. Karen Lindgren was removed from her position immediately. The same people who once praised her now wanted answers. The county also opened an investigation into how the farmers market permit was approved. Questions started appearing. Who signed it? Who reviewed it? Why was emergency access treated like unused property? Nobody had clear answers, and Karen's confidence disappeared almost overnight. The person who had spent the entire summer presenting herself as the one who improved the community was now the person everyone blamed for putting it at risk. A few months later, I heard Karen quietly listed her house for sale. She didn't make announcements. She didn't defend herself publicly. She just left. Stan and I still meet for coffee most mornings. Sometimes we talk about that summer. Sometimes we don't. But every once in a while, Stan brings it up. He always says the same thing. Karen spent an entire summer convincing people that emergency access wasn't important. Then he shakes his head. The wildfire settled that argument in 11 minutes. And he's right, because sometimes people ignore warnings because nothing bad has happened yet. They confuse silence with safety. They look at an empty road and see wasted space. But people who have lived through emergencies understand something different. Some things aren't valuable because they are used every day. They're valuable because one day, when everything goes wrong, they are the only thing standing between people and disaster. Ridgeline access looked like an abandoned gravel road until the night we needed it. Then it became exactly what it was always meant to be. A way out. And that was the moment Karen Lindgren finally learned the difference between a space nobody uses and a lifeline nobody can afford to lose. The end.